New this morning, the latest jobs report was just released. It shows 150,000 jobs were added in October. It's still a positive number and continues a positive trend, but it's a little bit lower than economists were expecting for the last month. The unemployment rate ticked a bit higher to 3.9%. With us now, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and Senior Advisor to President Biden on all things infrastructure, former New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu. Great to have you both here with us together on set. Secretary, I just want to ask you about this jobs report, 150,000, a little bit of a deceleration in jobs growth there, a little bit of a chill. What do you think that reflects in the economy, and where does the infrastructure bill that is being implemented, play into that?
Well, it's hard to read too much into going from one month to the next month. The overall pattern, of course, is extraordinary job growth and the extraordinary fact that unemployment is and remains below 4%. To get to your question about infrastructure, what excites me is that we have infrastructure work we're launching today that will be creating good jobs throughout this decade. Some of the projects that we have underway, there's more than, I think, 31,000 just on the transportation side alone. Some of them will be done in one construction season, simple, relatively small projects. Others, rebuilding an airport terminal or the Hudson Tunnel that we're starting work on today, those will be generating good paying jobs for years because they're so complex. So this isn't just an investment in one season. It's not just about goosing demand. It's about long-term investments in the capacity of this country with a lot of jobs created along the way.
Mayor, part of your gig is to spend the money that was, that was passed as part of the infrastructure law. Republicans, the government, by the way, as you gentlemen both know, is about to shut down again in a couple weeks unless something is done about it. Republicans over the summer and through the last almost shutdown were trying to pass some measures that would claw back some of the money from the infrastructure bill. How does that complicate what you're doing?
Well, the president's vision is that you have to invest in America and you have to invest in American people and American things to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. And as the secretary said just a minute ago, we already have 38,000 projects going on in the country, rebuilding roads and bridges and airports and ports, waterways, high-speed internet, clean energy economy. For example, we're breaking ground today on the Hudson Tunnel because we want to fix the Northeast Corridor. The president thinks that we ought to have world-class rail. So it's a little bit curious to us that some folks on the Republican side and the House on the Hill actually want to make rail go slower and be less safe and not help people get to and from where they're going. So we hope that they don't make the unfortunate decision to try to leverage a government shutdown and stop this progress that we've made. As the secretary said just a minute ago, since the president's been in office, created 14.5 million jobs. That's a lot of money going into people's pockets to build generational wealth, and that's what the president talks about when he says that we're going to make a better America.
Does it make your job harder, what's happening in Congress?
Absolutely, and it's also going to make the fight against inflation harder. Look, part of what has helped reduce inflation has been increasing the fluidity of our supply chains. That means investing in things like ports. Today, we're announcing 41 port projects around the country, from a slackwater harbor on the Arkansas River to improvements for some of our biggest container ports like Newark or Long Beach, California. But what they just voted through committee and what House Republicans want to do would take $100 million out of the funding for our ports programs. I don't know why you would do that. It also shorts our FAA systems, equipments, and technology by about $500 million compared to what the president put forward. And I just don't know how anybody who's been on an airplane lately would think this is a time to do less on aviation.
Mayor, I was reading, you sat down with Bloomberg, and in the write-up of the discussion you had with Bloomberg, voted in a recent poll, 38% of swing voters say they trust President Biden to handle infrastructure. 42% say they trust Donald Trump. Why do you think that, even with the fact that the infrastructure law was passed and pushed by President Biden, he's trailing on that?
I think I find that really curious, but I think that people will see. There's a phrase that calls "a thing speaks for itself." When people see these projects coming out of the ground, they see it, they're going to know who did it, they're going to know how it happened. And if the Republicans of Congress keep actually going in the opposite direction, I think they're going to understand pretty clearly who's on their side and who's not.
Mayor, we have a new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, and the K-File here at CNN reported that back in the mid to late 2000s, he worked with a group that promoted conversion therapy, the idea that people who are gay can be turned not gay. And this is something that's been widely discredited and considered dangerous over time. And back then, he's quoted as saying, quote, "Homosexual behavior is something you do. It's not something that you are." And since he's been confirmed as Speaker. Just last week, he did an interview where he talked a little bit about this. I want you to listen to what he said.
When the Supreme Court issued the Obergefell opinion, that became the law of the land, okay? I respect the rule of law, but I also genuinely love all people, regardless of their lifestyle choices.
Regardless of their lifestyle choices, he said, which is very similar to what he said 15, 20 years ago when he was working with groups pressing conversion therapy. What do you make of that statement?
Look, I've often said if being gay was a choice, that was a choice that was made way above my pay grade. But my lifestyle is that I'm a dad. I'm a married father of two, a beautiful boy and girl, twins, 2 years old. And our family deserves to be protected. It deserves to be supported, just like every American family. Most Americans get that. Most Americans believe that. I will admit it's a little bit difficult driving the family minivan to drop our kids off at daycare, passing the dome of a Capitol, knowing that the Speaker of the House sitting under that dome doesn't even think our family ought to exist. But that's one of many, many reasons why I'm grateful to live under the protection of the Constitution, which according to the Supreme Court established our right to have that family, and serving under a president who is making sure that everybody is included and protected, including families like mine.
I don't know if you'd heard that interview before, but to hear that language from someone who's second in line to the presidency, how did that hit you?
I mean, it almost feels like time travel. Most Americans, by the way, most Republicans, as well as Democrats and independents, respect things like marriage equality. And if you really are pro-family, if you care about families, if you want to support families, then you ought to support things like the president's push to have insulin be $35, which we were able to do for seniors and would do for everybody if House and Senate Republicans hadn't blocked it. If he really cares about families, maybe take another look at the child tax credit, which cut child poverty in this country in half. And then when they let it expire, because people like Mike Johnson were against it, the child poverty rate doubled again. Let's talk about what it really means to support families, whether it's LGBTQ plus individuals or any other family in America trying to get through life. All I can do from the seat that I'm in is try to support American families with better infrastructure, whether it's the 2nd Avenue subway that we're going to be doing work on today, the Hudson Tunnel that hundreds of thousands of people count on to get to where they need to be in the New York area, or the supply chains we're improving that go into how a family puts a box of cereal on the table. That's our focus. I would love for him to be helping, not hurting those families.